Now, you mentioned CBS, New York Times, the resources they might have to fight anything that comes out of the FCC. But I want to dig in a little bit here because there have been some headlines suggesting that Chairman Carr could punish newsrooms. And you mentioned, the Trump campaign was not happy with the CBS 60 Minutes interview with Vice President Kamala Harris. So how could an FCC under a Trump administration punish the news networks?
So I think there's a couple ways and things to watch out for. So the most obvious and direct one would begin to mess with renewal of their broadcast television licenses. So all of these major networks also own local television stations, and the FCC is in charge of those licenses, of that access to the airwaves. So if they were to rule that these companies were not serving the public interest, they could theoretically take away those licenses. That said, even the threat of that, even the idea that the government is watching is going to have a chilling effect on what these newsrooms are doing. And you can see that in the statements coming out from some of the executives at these companies promising to pursue fair and balanced coverage, code word very familiar to Fox News viewers, promising to end activist journalism. These are the kind of promises the executives are making already. So there's the direct threat, but there's also the indirect threat. So something that the FCC could also do is they could allow a whole new wave of massive media consolidation. And we've seen this before, right? If you remove the rules and limits on how many, say, television stations a company can own, well, suddenly you can sell those to people who are closer to the president. Already broadcasters are lining up saying, make it unlimited, the number of television stations we can buy. We saw this in other parts of the media. Twitter is a great example. When Elon Musk didn't like what was on Twitter, he bought it and remade it in his image. We could see that kind of thing carried out in other parts of the media. So it's both the sort of offensive measures, we're going to step in and disrupt what these companies are doing, but their real power is the power they have to reshape the media market as a whole and put it in fewer and fewer hands that we've seen are very responsive to signals coming from the White House. We can see that, directly in folks like Elon Musk essentially moving in and being part of the transition team. But we also see it in the activities of Jeff Bezos and the publisher of the Los Angeles Times. The election got close and they said, well, maybe we won't endorse a candidate after all. We have a lot of business before the government. These companies have a lot of things that they want to do. They want to access the airwaves. They want more licenses. They want to be able to expand. The FCC has a hand in all of that. So if that power is used to punish those who offer coverage critical of the administration, then we have a real problem.
How fast would we see those effects? And how would news consumers, regular Americans, know whether or not they are consuming coverage that has been, censored is a strong word, but maybe clipped a little or softened, or I don't know what the right word is, but I guess what I'm asking is how can people trust? Yeah, go.
Yeah, well, I think what we already know is people have a huge distrust of the news media already. I would argue largely because of this, because they don't know, what the bosses are doing. They don't know where the information is coming from. So they do have reason to distrust already. But what I'd be watching for as a news consumer is, news outlets, especially when it comes to television and radio, pulling their punches, not looking more deeply into what's happening in the White House, in these administrations, at places like the FCC, which often go undercovered by a lot of the mainstream media, especially, broadcast television, broadcast radio. The other thing you have to be watching always at a place like the FCC is what's happening essentially in the business section. What are the deals on the table? Who's trying to merge? Who's trying to grow their power? And how easy or hard is it for them to do so? I would argue we don't benefit from more media consolidation, but are they clearing the way? Are they waving through deal after deal? Are some companies getting a better deal than others? These are the kinds of questions that come into play. How are they making these decisions? If Donald Trump on the stump off the cuff says, that's not a merger I want, is it dead on arrival? Or are these all being vetted by the same kind of standards? These are a lot of questions, and they cut both ways, both in terms of stopping deals and, of course, letting them go through. I'm probably more worried about the letting them go through but I think these are the things that folks need to worry about. And I think what Carr has shown again and again throughout this period of auditioning for this job is he really wants to make a splash. He is going on Fox Business News regularly. He is constantly in dialogue with Elon Musk on Twitter, and he is signaling time and again, I'm your guy, and I'm going to take a sledgehammer to the rules and regulations at the FCC in order to first and foremost benefit this administration, and based on his record, first and foremost benefit the biggest companies. And I think that's something a lot of news consumers already so frustrated with the news they're getting should be worried about.